feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the DaneMoore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming at you Tuesday afternoon. It's March 31st after the Wolves' 30-point win in Dallas on Monday night. That game marked the return of Anthony Edwards, of course, after Ant missed the previous 2 weeks with some knee inflammation. We'll obviously get into what happened in Ant's limited return. He was on a minutes restriction. It also marked the Wolves' first game they had to play after learning that McDaniels is going to be out for an extended period of time. I want to talk about kind of what replacing Jaden will look like in his absence here, but we're talking about the real story of last night, maybe the real story of the last month for this team. It's Ayo Dosunmu, who also came back from missing a couple of games last night with a sore calf. Dosunmu started the game in place of McDaniels, who was and will be out. And Dosunmu played 33 minutes, scored 18 points, had 15 rebounds and 12 assists. I know it was against a tanking Dallas team, but I think all of us, I don't know. Watching that game put Ayo in a higher level now. It confirms some of my optimistic viewpoints on Ayo, and I think for even some people who were slower to adapt, if you watched that game last night, I think you believe in more and more of a ceiling from Ayo, and it wasn't just last night. Last 7 games, Dosunmu was averaging 17 points, 8.5 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 56% from 2-point range and 53% from 3-point range. I've got Britt Robson here with me, and you spent all morning writing not just about Ayo, about that game, but a lot about Ayo. You've been writing a lot about Ayo recently.
It's impossible not to. I mean, I'm covering the team, and you're looking for the major stories of the team. You don't want to be too repetitive. At the same time, you don't want to ignore the obvious. And the obvious here is that this is a guy who sets pace whether you like it or not. And that is the difference between a Bones Highland or Jaden McDaniels or whatever. They're kind of dependent on other people to join them in their quest. They're not fantastic finishers. Bones is above average, but he just doesn't have the body type to absorb the kind of punishment that you do when, more than once last night, Ayo went full court, and you saw his teammates trying to catch up to him. I saw there was one play that I actually linked in my column I just wrote, where all 5 Timberwolves, you could see them. It's almost like a race. They're sprinting down, but Ayo's leading.
He wins.
And he took on like 2 defenders, turned one of them around with a crossover dribble, and then shoved them aside and then went up. It was Max Christie. It wasn't a guy. Was it Max Christie? What's his name? Yeah. Anyway.
Don't question yourself.
Well, there's another Christie in the league, and I always get last names.
Yeah.
But so anyway, with a left-handed, he lofted it over him with his usual like full speed, but still a finesse touch on the basketball. But the point being, he can absorb contact. He can go hard-nosed to the rim, and yet he also has touch and finesse around the basket. That is the perfect trio of skills to have if you want to be able to finish well. And he's 6'5", which again, that helps too. Like on that play where Christie leaped pretty high and he set it high off the glass, but part of it is he had a full head of steam. So when he jumped, he's going faster than a normal person jumps because he's already got that momentum behind him. It's just a skill set that I've been saying all season, or most of the season anyway, and a lot of people are also saying, and it's not just me, this team is much better when it pushes the pace. And this team is also a team that needs to be dragged into doing what it does well. And so Ayo is the dragger. Ayo is the guy who's saying, all right, I don't know if you're coming, but I just got the outlet pass and I'm gone.
Right.
What
I noticed, it was so much Ayo last night, right? And he's getting out in transition, and the ball's just in his hands a ton because Jaden didn't play. He was playing well. Right. Ant's playing limited minutes. What I saw from him last night was changing pace.
Right.
In the midst of a possession, in the midst of a just the kind of the flow of a play.
Playground ball.
Yeah, and I think we knew about this straight line attacking that he had. You kind of knew that was his superpower from watching him in Chicago. You paired that with the 45% three, and I kind of came in sort of viewing him as one or the other. You know, he was he was going to take the three, or he was going to straight line drive you in the half court, and in transition he was going to just straight line drive you. There's one play, I wonder if you remember this. I was just up top playing point guard. Last night was the most we saw him play point guard, I think, in any game. And Dante comes in for one of those kind of like ghost screens where he's really just like pretending to set a screen and sort of peels off of it there. And you try to create some confusion. And Dante do that all the time. Cooper Flagg was on Ayo Dosunmu and did not get confused by it. Like, it was in the fourth quarter or third quarter, something like that. They've been doing it often, and Flagg is still there guarding Dosunmu. And so Dosunmu kind of had the plan. Dante's going to come off of this, moving from the left to the right. I'm going to, in front of me, go to my right because Dante's pulling the other direction. And Ayo starts going, and Cooper Flagg is there with him. He doesn't have an advantage. The Dante thing did not create an advantage for Ayo to just go straight to the basket. What Ayo did is he kind of got to the elbow, and he kind of had a hang dribble in there, right? And he hesitated. He changed pace. It got Flagg on the wrong foot, and then he hit the gas again. Right. And he's a gas player, right? Yes. Like that is what he does, getting straight to the point. But by changing pace, I mean, talk to coaches, like that is what the best guards do is they change pace. And it's normally like with wiggle. And I don't think he really has like the classic like wiggle, cross, all that sort of stuff, but he can change some pace. And that makes me believe that, all right, he's not just a guy who exclusively can attack when the ball swings to him, catch an attack, isn't exclusively just a transition guy. He could do a little bit in the half court, even in isolation. And if he's going to be the point guard for this team, that's critical. You know, that to have that variable, you get something through that you certainly weren't getting in Mike Conley, and is very different than Julius Randle when he's initiating.
Absolutely. And I don't know if it's the same play we're talking about. I linked also to this in the column, couple of Ayo visual highlights, but he did have Cooper Flagg in front of him just inside the foul line and did one of these shoulder shimmies, almost like Kevin Durant getting ready to shoot a foul shot or something, and then drove hard left. Is that the one you're talking about? No,
that's another one. I remember I was clicking through, I was watching his, but that was on the other side of the floor. But yeah, I mean, but point being, it's not just
he did a hesitation on that one too. Yeah. And he's got a reputation now of being like this straight line drive guy, which he is. The other thing I really liked about that play was he had just hit a three in rhythm before, and Ann had thrown a long outlet pass down to Dante in rhythm, and but all Dallas had gotten back, and so Dante hit him with a little shovel pass coming down. He got by one guy with a crossover, and then he did that little thing on Flagg, and I think it was a Flagg. Anyway, the point being, he's got more in his bag than just a straight line speed and a 3-point stroke. And he would probably have told us that if we asked him. He's got an ant-like matter-of-factness about his confidence. Like,
sure.
You ask him about his role or whatever, he goes, well, I just try to see what the team needs and then fill that need. In other words, I can fill any need. You just let me know what you need and I will take care of it.
Which is so far, such a good fit.
It's almost, no brag, just fact.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting because if Ant can integrate into the version of the team that leaned into some things while he was out, and we still at the same time get the vintage skills Ant has, especially in the clutch, then this team goes up a level and may level up to, near elite status, which right now is owned by OKC and San Antonio. I'm not predicting it yet because you never know. I mean, you can always say player X just needs to add Y and everything will be fine. Well, players aren't robots. And even though I spent a lot of today's column, the one will be out tomorrow, I think, talking about how important and how nice it would be if Ant can both dig in a little bit more on defense and play at a faster pace, which, by the way, suits his athleticism, his
Sure.
skill set, and suits his playmaking, then this team will go up a level. But it's not always that simple. You know, players are finicky beasts. They've honed their skills to what they think is the best combination of stuff. Otherwise, they would change. And it remains to be seen whether Ant might be on board with that type of tweaking.
It makes it easier for him to adapt to when it's consistently present. And
Right.
with Ayo, it is.
Good point.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And especially when you also factor in Bones and you look at some of the quotes out of the locker room from Ant last night was kind of like, Ayo or Bones initiate, and I'm playing off of it. Obviously, he's not saying exclusively. There's going to be possessions that way. But I do think that's a signal of him being like, I get it now. I see what it is now.
Right.
This is how I can fill in around the pace at which they're going with. Because, like you said, he will go if they're going. And I do think Ant is going to benefit from it. I think there is going to be. I'm curious to see the first game where like transition doesn't really work.
Yeah.
And are they able to kind of continue to keep trying
Maybe
to
the
look
next
for
game in
it?
Detroit.
Could be, yeah. I mean, the last Detroit game,
Yeah.
I mean, you had no Ayo there, but yeah, it's going to be this Ayo, Ant, Dante backcourt, right, going forward. That's the starting 1 through 3.
And oftentimes all of them on the court at the same time.
Starting,
because Ayo will replace Jaden, right? And I think that is really good distribution. In terms of assists per game, they're 3 of the top 4 guys on the team, Randall being right in there too, and Conley being right in there. But Conley is a bit player. These guys, if you start that 5, obviously you're missing Jaden's length, and that's important in certain matchups. But you'll get go-go with those 3, and if Ant buys in. And I think Randall will be benefiting too. So it is very promising if it works. The Wolves do have a tendency to, play with their food. And I noticed that Ayo notices that too and doesn't allow it after a while. I mean, he had 2 really brief stretches in the third quarter. There was an 85-second stretch where he scored 5 points and set up somebody. I mean, just bang, 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 bang. And it was a 3-pointer. It was a straight line drive all the way down the court for a bucket, and it was a nice dime for a 3. And then there was another stretch that lasted like 85 seconds where he fed 3 different players, and when they scored, there was no less than 19 seconds on the shot clock. So in the first 5 seconds of the possession,
3 buckets
in a span of less than 2 minutes, he threw 3 dimes to 3 different players who scored within the first 5 seconds of the shot clock. Now, that's not going to happen against a lot of defenses.
Sure.
But what that means is he takes what they give him, and if they give him a lot, he'll take a lot.
I think there's a blessing in disguise to Jaden being out, who obviously they need back, and they will for defensive purposes. I do think starting Ant, Ayo, and Dante will further submerge Ant in this kind of sidecar style of play that they're adapting over the course of the season, of playing faster, more pace, not just getting into the half court, but faster pace within the half court. I think this environment will be healthy for it to just kind of permeate and the whole group.
And it'll put Dante at ease. I think Dante really likes to start, obviously. And I think that the clamor is, hey, odd man out if Ayo starts will be Dante.
Right.
Well, now it is McDaniels because he's out. And so more time to develop a chemistry there and solidify his place. And also, to be fair to Dante, he's earned his time. I mean, it isn't like
I like Ayo and Dante next to each other.
They are both gritty.
Yeah.
And having that scrappiness is something. When you have Ant and Randall, who become, they both can play with contact and welcome it in certain instances, but they are too load-bearing on their teams to be perpetually scrappy players. And so having that scrappy sidecars is really, it hats off to Tim Connolly. I mean, those were in, you throw in slow-mo. I mean, since slow-mo's been here, the Wolves allow 99.6 points per 100 possessions when he's on the court.
It's crazy.
That's just insane.
Yeah.
I mean, during that same period of time, they've given up overall 110.3 points. So over 10 points per 100 possessions saved with slow-mo on the court. And it isn't like he plays with all the defensive aces too.
Let's grab a quick break. Then I have a follow-up question on Ayo, and then we can move over to Ant a little bit. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks, and even if your bracket is busted, that doesn't mean you have to stop picking, predicting, and playing the March Madness games. You can now, on Prize Picks, get odds on who wins, who loses. You can make picks against the spread. Illinois is 2.5-point favorites against UConn currently, and Michigan is a 1.5-point favorite over Arizona. These spreads are, of course, in addition to the Players tab, where you can make daily fantasy lineups. Keaton Wagler, more or less than 17.5 points in that game against UConn. Cole Pete, more or less than 15 points against Michigan. If you still want to play the March Madness games, there are plenty of ways to do so over at Prize Picks, and now even more with the ability to do futures and point spreads on the teams tab. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account, all you have to do is put in the promo code DANE. When you sign up, you'll receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code DANE. All right, back with Britt Robson. Do you think that Ayo Dosunmu will start before the season's over, like over Dante DiVincenzo?
No, not before the season is over. When it matters in a playoff game, we could have a D'Lo J-Max situation. Although I think Finch genuinely likes Ragu and thinks that he knows what Dante has done for this team. If I were a betting man, I'd bet against it, but would be nervous.
I think where I'm at is I'm pretty sure Ayo Dosunmu will start a playoff game over Dante DiVincenzo as an adjustment.
I think that's possible. If it doesn't happen,
like game 3 or something,
if it doesn't happen, that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Things are going well.
I have this one thought in the back of my mind. I told you I had Matt Moore on the show.
I love Matt Moore.
Before the last Denver game, and he's in Denver, and so he's covering all these Denver games, and what he brought up to me, and this was like 6 weeks ago, right after they got Ayo, and he's like, I think Ayo Dosunmu is going to guard Jokic. And I was like,
Caruso-like move.
Yeah. And I was like, I get what you're talking. I get the idea, fronting Jokic with the smaller guard, all that. Like we've seen that from time to time. I think what I said to Matt was, I think you're overestimating the Wolves' ability to do something completely different. What's happened in that time, I don't know how much Denver you've watched, but that's like becoming the base defense for the majority of teams.
Right. It's like
Denver.
Cat. They put a power forward on Cat, a springier guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's real. I mean, it was kind of just the Caruso thing. We saw it in the playoffs, and more teams are doing that against Denver. And maybe it even is in the first round in the 4-5 matchup. I don't think that this version of this Wolves team is as sized up to be able to handle Jokic in the way that they did 2 years ago when they had Cat and Rudy out there. Right. I think they will eventually be pressed to find a different way to guard Jokic. I don't know if that necessarily means starting, but I do think that would probably be the pivot.
Well, what about Randall, though? See, I think Randall would be interesting on Jokic. That lets Rudy float.
Off of who?
Huh?
Who's Rudy floating off of now in Denver?
Well, probably Cam Johnson, and let him shoot wide open clanks all the time. I don't know.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
Well, I get what you're saying, but I think it can be fluid enough with switches. I don't think when Denver has its entire group of people there, who are you going to put Rudy on anyway? Aaron Gordon? The same problem exists. Are you going to take Rudy off the floor? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think the base defense, because Denver has all shooters, will initially be Rudy on Jokic. And they'll stay home and they'll try to make Jokic a scorer, not a passer.
Okay, but we know what that looks like sometimes.
Yeah.
So Rudy has had the occasional good game against Jokic, but there have been far more times where Jokic has just toyed with him.
And I think I could list even more of that. Jokic had 60, 20, and 20 against Julius Randle in a game last season. And I'm not even obviously Julius is the best option of fours that they have to guard him, and that will be something that they go to. I'm just saying I think Ayo presents a different sort of variable defensively for them specific to that matchup. And again, 6 weeks ago, I was very skeptical of it, but it's becoming universally accepted.
But I would say I wouldn't necessarily totally dismiss the idea of Randle and Jokic 60, 20, 20 or not. He wasn't the primary guy who was definitely staying with him at all times in that matchup.
Well, Rudy did foul out. It was primarily Randle. And I don't know. You like Randle?
I like Randle against bigs in the low block.
Yeah, I don't. I think especially in a playoff series, I have concerns about that. And given what you're going to be asking Randle to do on the other side of the floor, my ideal situation for Randle is to guard a three that plays in isolation. I think that's like Cooper Flagg last night. I think that was.
But Cooper Flagg is no ordinary three. Cooper Flagg is their top usage guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a McDaniels assignment usually.
Sure. I'm just saying you could. That's the interesting thing with it's going to become the playoff time of, do we want to put McDaniels, our best defender, on this best player, or do we want to put Julius on him because the size matches? It's weighing in the externalities, right? Of, okay, if Jaden isn't here, then Julius is there. What else happens around it? I think Julius Randle is a good isolation defender. I think Julius on the perimeter. I think Julius Randle is a mediocre interior defender, and I think he's like a 1 out of 10 pick and roll big defender, navigating in coverage, navigating screens, 1 out of 10 chase defender on the perimeter there. And I just think it's really, if the opponent presents the opportunity to you, I think you need to put Julius in as advantageous of a defensive situation for him as possible. I need to think more through the Denver one. It might be Jokic there, but I think if you have Julius in a situation like last night where it's a defensive matchup that he can handle or maybe even win,
right,
you're also getting a better version of him on offense.
Right.
But
there. Also he was around. There was a lot of contact and a lot of movement for him on defense. And as a result, his offensive contributions and his other secondary stats were very low. He had 4 rebounds and 3 assists, 24 points. But he played one of his best games of the season because he was a two-way player, a really good two-way player. And that is what I think, if we're serious about this team, if we're saying this team isn't doomed regardless of who they play in the second round, if they get that far, then what's going to happen is that Ant and Randle, who have both proven to be above average defenders in the right circumstances, have to be that in the right circumstances. Now, the debate is, and you and I are having it now, what are the right circumstances? With Ant, it's easier. With Randle, it's not quite as easy. But we know what we want to keep them out of. With 75 games, we know you don't want Julius Randle chasing a guy off of screens. You don't want him guarding the big there. You don't want Ant doing that either. Chase and pick and roll.
Yeah.
And so you will have to, maybe Finch will go zone if you have a lot of that.
I think they'll switch everything. I think that's what will happen come the playoffs.
And he's not great at switching that way.
I think he's better than coverage, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it remains to be seen. I do think.
But he doesn't. Julius has been awful defensively. He's been awful, Britt. It's been an awful defensive season.
How often is it because of technique and how often is it because of willpower? I think when Julius Randle dedicates, he's a lot like Ant in this way. Ant has a higher ceiling and probably a higher floor. But Julius Randle, when he wants to be, can be an above average defender on a big in the paint.
For a possession.
I'm living with it until I'm embarrassed by it.
Well, Get ready for Wolves Spurs. I mean, and I say this after Julius just had a really good game guarding Cooper Flag, but I feel like that's my point, is like Julius in an advantageous defensive situation can be a good defender for you. Keep him out of the disadvantageous ones. And I think by looking for things like, oh, we're going to put him on Jokic. Oh, we're going to put him on Wembanyama. That's our best thing there. I kind of thought Durant, they might do that. That looks like that's going to be a McDaniels job. LeBron, like I'm concerned about how much is on his plate, not because he's a terrible defender.
Right.
He's been a below average defender this year. I think at least in large part due to the fact of what he's being asked to do offensively. You go in the playoffs, okay, can you do all? I don't know.
Can he be Cat-like? Cat went on Jokic, Cat went on Durant. They won both series. Cat is a notoriously bad defender on occasion.
But specifically to the Jokic one, to both of them, Cat has significantly more size, and against
more size, not more girth, right?
I think the length is very big for guarding Jokic in the interior, and I bet you he weighs about the same amount as Julius Randle. and then with Durant, you remember how he guarded Durant? He said back, and it was hand in your face. He guarded him at an arm's length because he has a 7'4" wingspan or whatever. Cat and Julius, neither of them are, great defenders,
right?
But they are more different types.
Julius
of
is quicker
defenders.
on his feet, believe it or not.
For sure, I'd way rather have Julius Randle guarding Cooper Flag than Karl Anthony Towns, and I'd way rather have Karl Anthony Towns guarding Nikola Jokic than Julius Randle. I think it's just different
for the
skill sets.
Maybe.
All right.
Remains to be seen. It'd be good if we revisit it. If it does happen, we can figure out who wins.
And I brought this up to talking about Ayo starting, which was looking, for ways for him to start. I do think it ultimately comes down to an Ayo Dante decision. Whether if Jaden was back, that would be a decision now. But that decision is going to be delayed until the playoffs.
Well, I mean, here's another possibility, which I'm increasingly leaning toward. What if Ayo jumps Nas as de facto sixth man?
Hasn't he already?
Well, I mean, I would think so. But again, there's your size, movement, kind of. The beauty of both Slow-Mo and Ayo is their Swiss Army knife capabilities. Both can play all the wing positions. And I mean, obviously, we know it's a fact that Slow-Mo is better at one forward position than the other, but it all depends. When he operates theoretically as a small forward in that big lineup, he's essentially a center on defense and a point guard on offense. So, but that's the point, is you've got guys, and if you have high usage players that will flow with the versatility of their teammates, then you've got something. Then you've got unpredictability. Then all those defenses lined up to stack up against Ant and Randall become less of value, more obsolete. And then you have a more variegated offensive attack. There is a window where this team can be really good, but it depends on how well their two main scorers and playmakers adapt.
It's going to be interesting when that decision has to be posed, I guess is all I'm getting out ahead of. And I'm lingering on it as much as I am right now, because I think last night flipped me over. I think that got me over into the
right.
Ayo's like the fourth or fifth best player on this team right now.
Absolutely.
And I always say playing more minutes rather than starting.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. Right. I want Ayo, because he's the fourth or fifth best player on the team, to be playing the fourth or fifth most minutes on the team. Right. Just the logic about the easiest way to do that is by starting. I think based on rotations, needing to consider how that would feel to Dante, especially with Dante going into a contract year this summer, contract extension negotiations, all that sort of stuff. But I feel like in this moment, or last night at watching that game, I flipped over into it's pretty clear to me that Ayo is the better option here now. And the margin of error is so thin with this team to string together this parlay of everything working so as to be able, which still exists, but everything working to be able to beat the team in the first round, beat the team in the second round, get back to the conference finals. So many things have to go right. Absolutely. And I wonder if you handicap yourself by, starting Dante, who's a 8.2 out of 10 when Dosunmu's an 8.8 out of 10. Like, can they even afford to make a decision that isn't purely based on we need to have all of our best players on the floor as much as possible? Ayo has become that. And I feel like he has. And it's fortunately not a conversation we have to have for 2 weeks because Jaden's going to be out.
Right.
And let's see what this all looks like. But in this moment today, watching that game last night, like I moved into Ayo's a top 5 player on this team. Should be treated as such.
If it works out best for the team. I mean, again, what I just got through saying about just add Y to X's into Ant's skill set and make that work. Just make sure Dante's a good soldier going to the bench. Everything's fine. From what I heard, after the fact last year, otherwise I would have reported it. Dante was not happy with his little competition with Na as even like 6th man, 7th man.
Yeah.
And
I get it from Dante's perspective too.
Absolutely. The guy is a warrior. He really is a gritty, hard-nosed player who does a lot. I mean, he doesn't get touches as much as he should. And as a result, sometimes shoots a little bit too frequently when he should be moving the ball. Although, what is he, like 5th or 6th in total threes made this season? And he's high percentage. I mean, when you're that big of a volume shooter, and you're still like over 37, 38%. I think he's still over that.
Yeah.
That's invaluable too. Not that
I don't see any of this to diminish from Dante. I really don't.
I get it. No, and I get it too. And one of my criticisms of Dante is I don't like the way he closes out. I think he's very vulnerable on closeouts. I see a lot of blow-bys that happen, and I see a lot of he has it in his mind to pressure the ball, which Finch loves, but he's not great at spreading himself when he's going to pressure the ball. And sometimes he overcommits to his side and he gets beat. Ayo was doing that earlier when I talked to Micah for the Ayo story I did. He talked about a lot of it was even with Vucevic, the Bulls bringing up people and trapping at the level more than allowing people to get into the paint. They don't have a Rudy Gobert who's as accomplished at the paint. And so maybe Ayo's habits are, not to stay with your man, but kind of get ready for the trap. Mm-hmm. And maybe that was why there was some blow-bys in his first week or two that Finch pointed out. But I do think Ayo is better at ball contain on a regular basis. Not only technically, but his physique. He's bigger and stronger than Dante, who is no small guard, but Ayo's got that inch on him, and he made his mark on defense first, and Ragu made his mark as a 3-point shooter first, and I think that matters just in terms of your own self-identity.
And what a good thing to have both of.
Absolutely.
We're not talking about playing either of these guys.
Right. No, nobody. And I don't hear you being critical. What I hear your proposal in Finch's mind going, is it worth the risk on the precipice of the playoffs?
Yeah. And maybe not. And maybe not. And I think it would be fair to say that needs to be a high bar. And I don't know, maybe I'm living high on an 18, 15, and 12 last night from Ayo.
I mean, remember the Celtics game?
Sure.
He was
not limited to.
He was dominant against a lot of really good wings, Inspired great game from Jalen Clark, in my opinion.
It took a couple weeks for sure for Ayo, even post All-Star break, right? It was a week or whatever.
I agree.
From the deadline to the All-Star break.
Not that he was ever bad, but he was just adequate.
It wasn't this.
He was adequate. He was somebody who was going to be a fine 8th man. Now, as you say, he's a credible starter.
Today's show is brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company, and the Wolves are on the road all this week. So if you want to go watch Wolves games with other Wolves fans this week, Falling Knife is, as always, your best option to do that. And both on Thursday and Friday evening this week, the Wolves play Detroit on Thursday and Philadelphia on Friday, and the games will be on in the tap room with the sound on. They also play the Initials game live every Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. in the tap room, so that'll be going on simultaneously to the Wolves-Pistons game. They also do a Sunday night trivia every week. I've been telling you about that every week. This week, it is Mario themed. Sunday night trivia is at 5 p.m. So this week, we're going to do some Mario themed trivia. That will be the spot, 5 p.m. Make sure you're following Falling Knife BC on Instagram so you can see the weekly taproom happenings going on over at Falling Knife every week. And then, make it happen. Get out there for a Wolves game or a trivia night sometime this week. That's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. One thing I do when the Wolves trade for a player, I try to watch a whole game or two. And my process is often to go to their basketball reference page and try to pick a good game, right?
Game score.
You go to game score, you know what I'm talking about, yeah. And so I did that for two of Ayo's games, like his top two games with the Bulls this season.
He had a triple-double last year, too, apparently.
I'm saying, man, I watched Ayo's quote-unquote two best games in for the Bulls.
And not like this.
Like 85% of what we saw last night, 85% of what we saw in the Boston game. This is, I can't say this as like a point of authority because how many of his games in Chicago have I actually watched over the course of his career? But I think he might be playing his best basketball of his career. And I think something about this situation is better for him than Chicago was.
He was behind in the pecking order, let's face it, to Josh Giddey and Kobe White, and did get like 25, 26 minutes, but was not allowed to be the kind of force he's being allowed to be. And the Bulls 1 through 5 don't have the talent that the Wolves have 1 through 5. So he's got a larger role with better personnel. It kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And plus, I think he journaled about it. Yeah. And he said, hey, the Lord blessed him with a new setting. And here we go.
Yeah, I think we were focused on the differences between Chicago and Minnesota. Right. Okay. Playing with Vucevic rather than Gobert, playing 5 out versus
and play with your hair on fire, regardless of the context.
And he does. I don't know. I kind of assumed the former was the better version for him because Ayo had been having success and that this was going to be something to navigate, acclimate to, maybe even make some sacrifices to fit for. I'm just saying, I think, in my opinion, it's been the opposite. And the context of this team with Gobert, not 5 out, all of the style of play things, I think this is shaping up to actually be a better fit for Ayo, at least from what I can gather from what I watched.
Well, look at it this way. If Josh Giddey, who at the All-Star break, and everybody was talking about him perhaps making the team, was a couple of rebounds and an assist or two away from a triple-double.
Yeah.
Where is the usage room there?
Well,
and compared
to Trey
the
Jones
Wolves,
was getting options too, opportunities there as well. There was a lot of guards in Chicago.
Right. Yeah. And they didn't prioritize the right one. They traded them for a bucket of bit parts.
Well, I think they made their decision
that they weren't going
to resign him,
And the same with Kobe White. What are they looking at?
Right. Well, it's the Bulls.
I mean, Rob Dillingham is going to make fully half of what Ayo's going to make.
I think it's going to be a third.
But as a lottery pick, isn't he going to be like 8-9 million?
Yeah, maybe it goes up to 8 next year. You're right. I think Rob was 6.5 at the trade deadline. What do you think Ayo's contract's going to be?
Right now, it's a bad time to ask.
I know.
I mean, the stock is high. I don't think he'll hold up. I don't think he'll be that kind of player. So what I would say is I think he'll get paid less than he's worth, kind of like Nas did, between 16 and 20.
I think I'm on 20.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mean, because another team can go. It's not like you can go try to get him.
Right.
He's going to be an unrestricted free agent.
Right.
Like you could blow the Wolves out of the water, with like some sort of
And
like Hartenstein type
we
thing.
don't know enough about him. He may be the kind of guy that's thinking, this is just my pivot out of Chicago. It doesn't mean it's my pivot into Minnesota.
Right. It seems like it's his pivot into Minnesota.
I mean,
I'm operating
he's
under the
making
assumption.
the most of it.
Yeah. I'm just saying it would be smart of his agent to test market factors so as to drive up the price,
Absolutely.
obviously, right?
And one of the things, and I know I'm always pro Tim Connolly, but I think Tim Connolly is well connected around the league.
Mm-hmm.
According to Finch, on draft night, he knows what everybody needs, not only by the logic of rosters, but by talking to them.
Right.
He's credible to them. He tells the truth to them and expects the truth back. And I think in a free agent situation, that's even more valuable. If he can do that with agents and executives and figure it out. And he's also one of those guys, he doesn't do rentals unless they don't pan out. I mean, if you're Shake Milton or, Monte Morris, all right, you're a rental. But, they brought back slow-mo for a reason.
Right.
They're loyal.
I'll say as of right now, so Nikhil's contract was average annual value of like 16.
Yeah.
Nas's was 25.
Yeah.
And I'll put Ayo right now directly in the middle of that, and I will guess
20.5.
That's
I
will say the as of right now, I would guess the average annual value
how many years
of Ayo's is over 20. 3 or 4.
Keep them in line with the other time guys.
Yeah. I mean, I think
because Ann and Jaden, I think Jaden is 1 year less than Ann. Is that the way?
No, they're the same. They're the
Okay,
same. Yeah,
okay.
both on that
So
5-year
is Nas
contract.
the one that's the extra? Who has the extra year?
Well, now Nas has the extra year because this is year
That's
1
right,
of
that's
5
right.
for
Right,
him.
Okay.
Player option in year 5 for Nas. Yeah, I think that's going to be market. I don't think, and I wouldn't be concerned about that either. I think that's what Dante's going to get too. I think Dante will get 20.
Will they get them both?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know.
All right. So if that's true,
but you have Dante under contract
let's
next
say
season.
that's true.
Yeah.
Then
I mean, it's coming to that, right?
It's easier to pull the trigger against Dante in the playoffs then.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah, I mean, so Dante is contract extension eligible this summer. He's under contract for $12.5 million next season, meaning you could sign him to an extension on top of that.
But I don't know why they would throw precious money now when they can wait.
Well, it would be the case for the case for bringing back Ayo around 20 and Dante around 20, or not the case. The reality of what that would look like is I think you pivot off of the third star.
You think that multiple second aprons are in the future? You think they're going to go over the second apron 2 or 3 years in a row?
What? No, I don't. I think if you bring
got to lose Rudy somehow, then
Ayo and Dante, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
if you bring Ayo and Dante along on their next contracts, I think you lose, and in like a delete sort of way, lose one of Julius or Rudy as your $30-35 million players. And that's traded.
Easier said than done, though.
I'm not worried about Rudy at $35 million having attraction around the league. That's not a super long-term deal there. Again, I said I think they're going to end up choosing between Ayo and Dante eventually down the line.
Right.
Once these contracts come together, but it's relevant when we're talking about.
Then there's always the honest trade.
Yeah, right. Well, then I don't know if you'll have either of them on the team. It'll be, I mean, money's tight, and I don't mean to be like, oh, it's like throw 20 at him, 20 at Dante, but it's not like a situation where you can't. Like you could keep guys, just somebody will need to fall off the wagon in that sort of way, and I think that's where you would look at one of the bigs, Nas, Julius, Rudy.
I know.
I'm already assuming one of them aren't on the team.
I just don't know if market value. I don't know what Julius Randle's market value is.
And the really interesting thing about that is going to be, what does it look like this summer? Because last summer was so restricted from a money available standpoint that there weren't a lot of Julius Randle
teams are
suitors.
getting the lay of the land. They're beginning to adjust and
Yeah.
beginning to figure out, and they're also beginning to figure out. That's why guys like Slow-Mo and Ayo are so important right now. They are versatile. They can they can fill gaps. And if you can't fill gaps, the Wolves got caught because they couldn't fill the Nah gap. They had 3 players they thought could fill the Nah gap, and none of them really could.
Yep.
And that really hurt them. That's going to be so important as money gets tight. You want to, in some ways, you don't need a beautiful ship. You need a tight ship, an unleaky boat.
Yeah.
And so that means if a guy goes and leaves a hole in your roster, you got to find a way to patch it.
And we've learned with McKeel,
guy who can, this one may break or this one may break. Well, I got somebody who can take care of either scenario, if not both. Obviously, not both at the same time. But those are the guys who are probably going to be adding $5 or $6 million a year to their value.
How do you think Ant looked in his return?
I love the way he played. I love that he came out. I mean, after his untimely dump, not being able to get on the floor. I love. Did you see Krasinski's tweet?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to take a shit. Is that what he said? Yeah. So anyway, his first 2.
I got the dump reference.
His first 2 notable plays were dimes for threes for Ayo and Ragu.
Yep.
That to me was beautiful. And then he obviously got to the point where you could just tell you're saying, hey, wait a minute now. I haven't even scored yet, I don't think. And he took an ill-advised shot.
Yeah.
And then he hit a couple of threes and said, all right, my mid-range isn't going, but my threes are.
Wasn't it the first 3 Ayo got to him kind of in semi-transition, right? That was the first made one?
Yeah, and then Ant paid him back and another one just like almost a couple of plays later.
Yeah.
It was, I just liked the way he played. I liked, he wasn't too anxious. He wasn't trying to say the big guys back in town, everybody fall in line here.
Yeah.
That was really, interesting stat. The Wolves are like 36-23 with Ant and 10-6 without him. 61% winning percentage with Ant and 62.5 without him. Now, I am not saying, I know there'll be a long queue of guys who are going to call me an Ant hater and how stupid I am for wanting to kick Ant off the team or driving him out of town. Some other fucking nonsense. But essentially, Ant being a team player with the mindset that it will make him better is still the way to go. And I saw some evidence of that last night. And I also saw, I don't need to rush back. I'm on a minutes restriction. Okay. I do think he was in legitimate, I think that questionable before his last 2 or 3 games was not Ant being like a prima donna. I think he was really hurt. And I think he wanted to go. I never questioned his desire to play. He made a thing of it when he was young, and now it's a little less of a thing because he realizes the wear and tear that it takes on him. But I like his attitude. I like the way he played last night. And it will be interesting to see. Detroit has a lot of people who can beat you up, and they will. They'll beat him up. And how often and how well he plays is going to be that's going to be the real test. I'm glad that he got his feet wet against Dallas because it obviously much inferior competition. And so he found a little bit of the NBA rhythm back, and now we'll see. Hopefully he can continue to play with that same generous spirit.
I thought he looked as focused on hunting the mid-range as I can remember from Ant in a game. And I remember I wrote it down in my notes, during the game. And I thought initially, okay, he's trying to see one go in. He's trying to get back into rhythm, play through him a little bit. And I'm kind of like, well, we could just do it the normal way, whatever. But the more I thought about it, and given Ayo's presence in the starting lineup, and as it kind of learned over as the quarters spilled on, that Ayo really played point guard in that game, and Ant was the primary initiator a lot less. I think that might have been the corollary for why Ant was trying to play through the mid range as much, like straight post up mid ranges, like back
like Durant,
Kevin
Durant game. Right.
Not like high screen 1-2 dribble in against drop coverage mid range.
Durant is never the initiator, but he wants to be the guy.
Yeah.
And it is, and then probably one of the reasons Ant admires that game. And he has a template there.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's not stupid enough to, Bigfoot a guy who's playing out of his mind, And so I don't know. I was just impressed. I didn't think it was bad at all. It just I felt like I learned what the beginning of what is going to be a trend here, and is if this is true that with the presence of Ayo, Ant shifts a little bit more into a 2 than a 1 as he was functioning as for most of the season. Right.
The style of where his shots are generated is just going to be a little bit different. I'm cool. He's proven to be
and he will be
range.
Open for threes in transition.
Sure.
And that's the thing. The less they play in the half court, if this team can play wide open more on turnovers and defensive rebounds, having 17 turnovers and 6 points off turnovers in the Detroit game, that was Ayo Dosunmu missing in action.
Yeah, right.
Somebody on the shelf. The Wolves don't get 6 points off 17 turnovers if Ayo is in a uniform.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, so theoretically will be fewer half court possessions than the pre-Ayo days.
Exactly.
But the playoffs kind of counterbalance that, which exists a little bit more in the half court, where I think we'll see Ant, especially when the doubles start coming.
I mean, here's an interesting question. Somebody responded to me on Twitter or one of the social media networks.
You've been checking a lot of comments, it sounds like.
Huh?
You've been checking a lot of comments.
I like to read comments. I'm not immune.
You didn't seem happy before.
Huh?
You seemed frustrated with your comment section of your previous answer.
Oh no, it wasn't you mean the political stuff? No.
No. I'm talking about the Ant stuff. You said, everyone's gonna see. I don't know why I'm talking.
Well, that's just idiocy. I mean, that's like somebody ascribing. People want to be the biggest Ant fan of all, and there's a stiff competition for it. So there are people who do like clickbaits, just basically saying all the beat writers are shitting on Ant, one of those things. And that's where you just go, you do want to just like reach to the wire and go.
Today's show is brought to you by Treasure Island Resort and Casino. And with the playoffs right around the corner, we want to let you know that the Parlay Lounge at Treasure Island will be showing all the Wolves playoff games this spring. There will be certain road playoff games that are official watch parties hosted by the Timberwolves that will include Crunch and the Action Pack and the Timberwolves dancers being in attendance. If you come to our last live show, they were all involved in that one as well. We'll let you know those dates once we have, obviously, a playoff schedule. We'll also be doing a playoff preview show out there at Treasure Island right before the first round begins. Again, we need the schedule for that, so we'll keep you updated on timing for that as well. But keep Treasure Island on your radar, not only for the playoff games, but for a live show here coming up. Treasure Island, also, you want to keep it on your radar for outdoor concerts this summer. The concert schedule at Treasure Island includes Rockin' the Island, which is a 2-day music festival at TI on June 26th and 27th, featuring Stone Temple Pilots, Theory of a Dead Man, Skillet, Hinder, Hoobastank, a whole list of them. And then Shinedown and Coheed and Cambria are also playing at Treasure Island Amphitheater later this summer. So for Wolves games, but also concerts this summer, keep Treasure Island Resort and Casino in mind and visit ticasino.com for more details. Anyways, yeah.
What was I saying?
Somebody on Twitter said something to you.
Oh yeah, thank you. It was about if the Wolves do play really up tempo the way I keep urging, it'll be interesting to see what happens if Denver has home court advantage in a series with that high air. And I think that is an interesting question.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. I hear different things about, some people say after a little while, you forget about it, and other people say, "Oh no, it really bothers you." So
I remember they got there like the night before the last game, and they chose to stay in LA an extra night before going to Denver. Remember there was that I was on that trip.
Game?
No, it was the February or whatever that was. That the last one when they won on the Sunday in Denver. Yeah. They got in on Saturday, and they chose to say that. I remember before. I'm like, well, maybe you should have came to Denver and practiced in the altitude in Denver on Saturday before the Sunday game, rather than practicing in LA on the Saturday before the Sunday game. They chose the latter. They chose LA, and they killed Denver the next day in altitude.
So you never know.
So, I just say that to further I know that's like kind of a thing, but it's
the health of Peyton Watson and Aaron Gordon is going to be, I think, the most important thing about that series.
For sure.
If it happens.
Right.
I actually would like that to happen more than any other scenario.
Denver?
Regardless of who has home court advantage.
Yeah.
I think Denver and Minnesota going at it again
fun.
Is just good fun.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to say on the mid-range stuff. Sorry, I didn't finish this last bullet point. I'm cool with Ant playing through the mid-range and taking those shots back to the basket, the KD style. There's one play in the game where it was a square up, and it was a jab, went the other way, went through and dunked in the middle of the lane. I was against the Dallas defense or whatever, but it got me thinking of like, if you are Ant playing through the mid-range here and you're catching the ball at 14 feet, your shots can come from less than 14 feet.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like it doesn't.
He has that step through.
Yeah, and you're right. It exists. That one is just like, if he wouldn't have done the step through on that one or the jab and kind of shook his guy right there, he's taking maybe a fading mid-range shot, which he's good at. Like he's going to decently open. He's going to make it about half the time. But a dunk's a dunk, you know, and a kind of in rhythm floater is a better shot there too. I'm cool with him playing through the mid-range. I've really moved on that over the course of the season, but still like, I don't want it to be ever something that he settles into and is just repeatedly taking.
I don't think Finch will let that happen.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, to the degree Finch can prevent Ant from doing anything. But I do think that there does reach a point of, I mean, I actually think Kevin Durant would be a lot better player if he cut his mid-range usage from like 50 down to 30. And went to the cup a little more and shot from outside a little bit more.
But it's kind of like the same thing with the good luck coach.
Exactly. Exactly.
Replacing McDaniels. Let's do that for a final topic. The obvious starting lineup change was Dosunmu started there. The rotation still included Naz Reid off the bench. Naz Reid as a 4-5. Played a couple minutes at the 3 in the end of the second quarter, I think it was. Bones
Is that
comes
when he
in.
Was terrible on defense?
Man, Naz is struggling. That's maybe part of this conversation in general. No, Naz wasn't because all three bigs were out there. When Naz was terrible on defense was when it was just only Randall, no Anderson out there. And they pulled Anderson had a really bad first shift.
Miscommunicated and loafed.
Yes.
I mean, it was just sickening. And it was mostly on Naz.
Right. And my thing with Naz and with Randall too is they are being unfairly put in the wrong position to defend so much. Neither of them are 5s.
Right.
Neither of them are 5s. Speaking of Kevin Durant, right? Especially 10 years ago, like peak Kevin Durant. What was the beauty of Kevin Durant? He can guard 1 through 5.
He was like McDaniels.
Yeah, right. So you could slide him up to the 5. Right. And you know what Julius Randle and Naz Reid can do? Is they can slide up to the 5 occasionally in the same way you would with Durant when you want to go smaller. But that should not be their base position that they're playing a lot.
Naz is too, you know me and Randall and Biggs. I would lean into Randall at the 5 more than Naz. Naz just doesn't have the body for it anymore. Plus, Naz, somebody said this and I agree with it. Naz is a great team defender. He's not a great individual defender. If Naz is charged with stopping somebody, it's not necessarily good news. And yet, generally speaking, last night notwithstanding, his results defensively with him on the court are generally positive.
I think if somehow he had a season whether it's with the Wolves or with somebody else, where he played his minutes at the 3 and 4 rather than playing the 4 and 5. I would bet a lot of money you get the best defensive season of Nas Reed's.
I would agree with that simply because he likes the idea of being versatile, but he's given the wrong option on versatility.
Yes, the upswing versus the down. So whatever, say that to mean he's going to be maybe a bit piece in replacing some of the Jaden McDaniels at the 3. The majority is going to be Ayo starting at the 3. And then, they last night they mixed in they played 3 guard lineups.
Right.
It was 3 guard lineups, or it was Nas at the 3, or it was Kyle at the 3. And I think that's how this is going to be filled for the final 7 games.
I think that's a really good point. Also, I think that it's such a matchup-driven league anymore. And if you look around, even guys who are 6'9", there's a million different skill sets of a 6'9" guy. Some of them are perfect for Nas. Some of them are perfect for Randall. Some of them are perfect for Gobert, for God's sake. Right. I mean, you don't really know. And Ayo, for that matter. And that's the beauty of, like, all these, as Finch would call them, skilled bigs, guys who like to flex as wings, even though they're really bigs or really point guards, creates fascinating matchups because you have defenders like that too. And, one of the things I did in this column today in the N1 newsletter, part of it was, and I've said it here too, I think, Randall's ability to know the nuance of physical contact when he's on offense. And I don't think anybody greets contact with the sustained thirst that Randall does. Is got to be really attentive to how it works on defense too. And that's another reason why I think he's good on post defense. And I think that's why he's been good against some of these other people.
But is it the number one thing, pick and roll coverage, Britt? I mean, again, it's just like that's the number one thing for both of them. That's the main thing you do as a 5.
It's a huge hole in my theory. Yeah. I would totally agree that people who run pick and roll a lot are going to require a Finch adjustment with Randall.
It's going to be switching. I'm telling you, man, it's going to be switching. When they in the playoffs, they're going to switch 5, black.
What if it's slow-mo, though? If slow-mo's out there, he can get deflections and he doesn't necessarily have to be switching.
If he can guard the 5, then they'll use slow-mo as the coverage 5, but they'll also try to switch with him. I think we're getting to the point of that's the answer. That will be the answer for the non-Rudy minutes is switching.
Zone.
What?
Or zone.
Yeah, but not in the playoffs.
Zone. He's less enamored right now. But
I mean, maybe a little bit, but like I think the base defense will be switching 5, and I do think for Nas and Julius that is a little more of like slap the floor and guard type stuff, which I like them both. Certainly better to do that than make decisions. I mean, the problem for both of them is they get confused by screens or don't like screens, and screens are not fun in the NBA, and screens are confusing in the NBA. It's just not their skill sets as defenders. I'm not saying Julius Randle or Nas Reed are zeros on defense. They really aren't.
Right.
They are just playing a different position. It's like in video games back in the day. I remember like when you would switch a player to play center, their overall rating would go down because they were an 85 at power forward, but if you switched them to center, they'd be a 78. It's the same thing with both of those guys. And this roster, after deciding not to play Berenger or not play Nas at the 3, you're just stuck with you're stuck with this reality. And it's the biggest question to me for this team.
What about alternating Ayo and Slow-Mo as the starting 3?
Like that's the rotation you're saying?
Well, I mean, no. Starting lineup according to matchups. In other words, if it's a big front court, you go with Slow-Mo. If it's a quicker front court, you go with Ayo.
I still think you just start Ayo because he's the superior player, and you want to play Ayo 30 minutes, and you don't want to play Kyle, more than 20. I don't think, given his limitations, he just has more limitations than.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
You can't play, or Finch tries to not play Anderson with Randall and Gobert ever,
as long as we don't see Shannon.
Sure, but I think that's even gone now, even with Jaden now. The 4 bench players.
I know, that's what I mean. Well, Jaden maybe cracks the door again.
Wait, what?
Jaden's absence increases Shannon's possibility.
I'm just saying last night Jaden didn't play and neither did Shannon.
Right.
So I think that one's been,
I hope.
yeah. I think it's got its chances, and I don't know what else to say about it.
No kidding.
Yeah. I compared it to I compared his minutes this season to Pokashevsky with Jace last year. I was like,
oh man.
Oh, I was serious, man. Who's been a worse rotation player on a playoff team this season?
But when you invoke the Pokachevsky comp on somebody, they may as well be dead.
Well,
I don't know of a player you've disliked more assiduously than Pokachevsky.
He's the worst.
And what's amazing is there's like a closet cadre of people who agree with you. Every city you've been in where you mention Pokachevsky, and there's always some guy in the group goes, absolutely
worst
right.
player. Yeah.
That guy is terrible.
No, and I think TJ isn't terrible. I think he's I do still think there's something in there. It's just lost. It's lost right now. And it's just definition of insanity, right?
Right.
It's just, we're expecting different results.
He needs a reset.
Yeah. So I don't think he's going to be part of the answer for replacing McDaniels.
I don't either.
I think it's going to be a lot of 3-guard stuff. And
I like that because that means more pace. And
yes.
More pace is what I'm in favor of.
Mm-hmm. And then he'll try to shoehorn Anderson in there with the lineup combinations.
Who, by the way,
that work.
has the highest pace of anybody.
Yeah, told you.
You did.
I mean, it's a different type of pace. It's an intention pace versus a lateral.
What
quickness.
it is, I thought about it, and it's because his passes are so purposeful. They often end possessions.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, create a situation where a basket is inevitable, or at least a shot is inevitable, which ends a possession. Well, he doesn't make those kind of perimeter passes that just keep a possession going.
Yeah. Well, we also know 2 main things go into pace, right? There's 2 basically variables that go into going fast and turning the ball over, and Kyle Anderson does both of those things. So that's that makes sense why he's up
and
there.
Ayo doesn't. Ayo's turnover rate is Ayo's got the same assists per 36 minutes, I think, as Randall, and his turnovers are like half.
If he was a running back, he'd never fumble. Right?
Right.
He's that guy.
Stephon Marbury.
5-yard carries. Do we miss anything?
Probably.
We bounced around a lot of Ayo, but that's the story right now, especially with Jaden out, especially with Ant reacclimating. I think.
Well, and also, I mean, let's just take a peek at the schedule because it is interesting.
For sure.
Detroit, Philly,
Charlotte.
3 really fascinating games, all Eastern Conference, which means I've only seen them once.
Mm-hmm.
Thumped by Detroit. They beat Philly, I think, didn't they?
It was, but Embiid and George, no, they lost.
They lost?
Right? Wasn't that a really bad loss?
Oh, was that one of their stinkers? It might have been.
I think so.
But didn't they lose to Charlotte too then?
Oh, let's pull up the schedule here. The slow loading pass call reference. They were both at the beginning of the season when they played both of those teams. I don't know. This isn't loading right now.
That's right. Anyway,
yeah.
I do think obviously Charlotte is like one of the top 5 teams in the NBA over the since the All-Star break.
They played Charlotte the 6th game of the season at Charlotte, beat them 122-105.
Okay, easily.
And then the Philly game, I don't know. I can't. There it is. Philly a loss at home. Yeah, 108-135. They lost by 27. Crushed. That was the second game after the All-Star break.
Oh yeah.
They played Dallas and then Philly.
Yep.
And then they went on that nice little swing.
Yeah.
At Portland, at Clippers, at Denver, home for Memphis, home Toronto. That was like the best.
When people felt like burying them and they arose from the dirt.
Yeah.
No. But 1-2 or 2-1 wouldn't surprise me. 0-3 or 3-0 would.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know though. The interesting thing about that is I couldn't nail the victory. I would say Detroit is pretty close to a defeat at home. Although I do think the revenge factor is there and Ant wanting to prove he's a difference maker. At the same time, I mean, OKC struggled to beat those guys the other night. I mean, that Detroit beat you up. And so But
That was with
Philly and
nobody.
Charlotte are both really interesting games, especially at this time of the year. You know, I have begun to not even think about Phoenix because Phoenix has a tough schedule too. But 6 gets you LA, and LA is playing defense of all things. And so it's LA, Denver, or Houston as your opponent.
And I do kind of feel like this stretch is going to define that, right? Like
That's
if you
saying.
do want to keep your eyes on the possibility for 4 or even 5, I do think you need to
2 and 1
at least, right? Because it is. Jason and I went through this yesterday.
Game
It's
and a half,
easier
isn't it
schedules.
over? Doesn't Detroit have? I mean, Denver have 2.5, a game and a half on them.
Yeah, they won last night.
And
They
the
played more
tiebreaker.
games though. I think it's the loss column. They have 1 fewer loss than the Wolves. So, which is
Anyway. And then I'm afraid of I keep looking at that final 2-game little set 2 there, Houston and then New Orleans. New Orleans is a crazy team, man. They're not tanking because they don't have a pick.
Yeah.
And they've got Murray back. They've got Zion, you know, they've got all those, you know, the Queen and the
Fears.
point guard rookie, Fears. And Zion loves to play against the Wolves.
He does.
You know, we'll test my Randall as a thumper defender on Zion and see what happens.
You've been on that matchup for like a month and a half now. That's gonna be.
I just fear it.
I don't know.
I mean, well, I mean,
Because it's gonna be right after the Houston game where it's like if they beat Houston, they'll be the 5 seed, provided they beat New Orleans in game 82. That's what it's gonna come down to for sure.
That's exactly the scenario I think about.
That's funny.
Or the 4 seed, even worse.
All right. Well, this was fun. I am heading to Detroit and Philadelphia for those 2 games. I'll have some stuff like from the locker room in Detroit after that game, and Kyle and I will also record something there. So the next episode will be coming out. What will that be? Friday morning after the Wolves play in Detroit on Thursday night. And then, we'll keep moving from there. I'll be at the game in Philadelphia. I don't know if we'll do a pod after that game. I don't think so because I'll be traveling back to Minneapolis. But yeah, we'll keep moving here. And actually, I think I have some not only interesting games, but interesting things to find out with this team. See how much of a overreaction all this Ayo stuff is, and what Ant looks like here, what it does end up looking like without Jaden. This team that was as healthy as it was for this season played a lot of the same players and style over the course of the year. They're kind of being forced into finding like an adjacent identity. And I think there's a world in which that helps them out here. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in Detroit and Philly. And until Friday morning or Thursday evening with Kyle for that game. He's Britt. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.